Coming up on Arirang News. President Yoon stressed fiscal soundness when addressing Parliament and seeking support for next year's budget proposal. This followed official talks with the main opposition party leader Lee Jae-myung, the first since Yoon became the president. South Korea's overall industrial output, retail sales, and facility investment all rose last month, marking a triple increase for the first time in 4 months, led by recovery in semiconductors. Israeli troops are advancing deeper into Gaza as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rules out a ceasefire. But rather than a full-scale war, Israel is apparently widening its ground operation by surrounding the population center.
Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. We start with President Yoon addressing the National Assembly earlier today, explaining and seeking support for the government's budget proposal for next year, which plans for the smallest ever on-year increase in almost 2 decades. He says the focus is on improving the country's fiscal soundness in order not to pass on burdensome debt to the future generations. Also, what caught attention today was official talks with the main opposition party leader Lee Jae-myung, the first since Yoon became the president. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon leads us off.
Fiscal soundness is the basis for the government's budget proposal for the year 2024, according to President Yoon on Tuesday at the National Assembly as he addressed the parliament.
건전 재정은 단순히 지출을 줄이는 것만이 아니고 국민의 혈세를 낭비 없이 적재적소에 효율적으로 쓰는 것입니다. 건전 재정은 대내적으로는 물가 안정에, 대외적으로는 국가 신인도를 유지하는 데 매우 중요할 뿐 아니라 미래 세대에게 감당하기 어려운 빚을 넘겨주지 않기 위한 것입니다.
In fact, the whole budget, which stands at 657 trillion won or 487 billion US dollars, increased by 2.8% on year. That's the lowest increase since 2005. And Yoon explained the funds saved will be redirected to enhance the nation's core functions such as defense, rule of law, education, health, support for the vulnerable, and securing future growth engines. To be specific, 1.1 billion US dollars additionally allocated for basic living recipients with support for one-parent homes and multicultural children. He also took the opportunity to share his general agenda, saying all policies will prioritize stabilizing prices and improving people's livelihoods amid global uncertainties from conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine. The word economy was mentioned 23 times in his 25-minute speech. The word reform also came up 14 times as he urged support for his 3 key reformation targets to the majority opposition floor, saying they're for the future of the country, including the critically low birth rate.
저출산이라는 어둠의 터널에서 빠져나오려면 미래 세대에게 희망을 주고 우리 사회의 지속 가능한 성장을 가능케 하는 경제 사회 전반의 구조 개혁이 필요합니다. 이러한 연금 개혁, 노동 개혁, 교육 개혁을 위해 의원님들의 깊은 관심과 지원을 부탁드리겠습니다.
Leading up to the speech, much attention was paid to Yoon's scheduled meeting with main opposition Democratic Party's dignitaries and Chairman Lee Jae-myung. A different scene compared to last year's budget speech when all 169 DP lawmakers boycotted it and no such meetings were held.
Since I became the Speaker of the National Assembly, I believe this is the first time that the President, chairpersons from both ruling and opposition parties, and the floor leaders, as well as leaders of all branches of the government, have gathered in one place. That's why it seems many media outlets and citizens are paying close attention to our meeting today.
Following the speech, Yoon also had a meeting and luncheon with committee chairs. There, he promised to reflect the words of lawmakers as he carries out policies. Kim Do-young, Arirang News.
South Korea's overall industrial output, retail sales, and facility investment all rose last month, marking a triple increase for the first time in 4 months, led by recovery in semiconductors. Park Gun-woo has more.
South Korea's overall industrial production, spending, and investments all saw a jump in September. According to data released by Statistics Korea on Tuesday, the total industrial production increased 1.1% in September compared to the month before. This was mainly due to increased production in the mining and manufacturing sectors of 1.8% on month.
As mining and manufacturing production increased by 3.1% in quarter 2 and 1.9% in the third quarter, it seems like a positive sign of recovery in the second half of the year compared to the first half.
Although auto production plunged in September, chip production, including memory semiconductors, rose around 13% compared to August, driving growth in the industry. The service industry was also up by 0.4% due to rises in the wholesale and retail sector, while sports and leisure saw a drop. Retail sales, which is a key gauge of private spending, jumped on month, especially as sales of food and beverages and cosmetics increased. A Statistics Korea official said food and beverages saw an increase during the Chuseok holiday period. Infrastructure investment also saw an increase of over 8%, as investment in machinery and transportation equipment both jumped. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
Samsung Electronics has made public its third quarter earnings report, which shows its operating profit exceed the trillion-won mark for the first time this year. The company had reduced losses in semiconductors and has profited from its new smartphones. Moon Hae-ryun reports.
South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics finally surpassed the trillion Korean won mark for its operating profits for the first time this year, despite a sluggish time for the chip sector. On Tuesday, the company reported an operating profit of just under 2.5 trillion won for the third quarter of the year, which at the current rate is around $1.86 billion. While this is more than a 77% drop compared to the same period last year, it's a vast improvement compared to the previous quarters this year. In the first quarter, the firm recorded an operating profit of just over 640 billion Korean won, or $475 million, followed by 668.5 billion Korean won, or $496 million. Sales in the third quarter fell by over 12% on year. These latest figures were mainly attributed to high performance in the mobile and display sector and a lower than expected deficit in the company's semiconductor division. Samsung's DS division, which deals with chips, reported that they were $2.78 billion in the red in the third quarter, marking the third quarter in a row that it has recorded a deficit. However, owing to the rising average sales price of DRAM chips, the deficit was around $445 million lower than the previous quarter. The latest figures released by Statistics Korea on the same day show that semiconductor production in South Korea jumped by nearly 13% on month in September, showing that demand for chips is continuing to improve and the firm can expect to continue its recovery in the final quarter of the year. Meanwhile, Samsung's MX division, made up of mobile communications and consumer electronics, patched up the losses made in the chip sector, with its foldable smartphones Galaxy Z Flip 5 and Fold 5, as well as wearable devices showing continued popularity. The display division also reported a large jump in profits with its small to medium-sized panels. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
South Korea's terms of trade increased for the fourth month in a row in September as import prices fell at a faster rate than export prices. According to the Bank of Korea on Tuesday, the country's net terms of trade index for goods rose by 4.5% compared to the same month last year, coming to 87.25. The index is an indicator of how much a country can buy in imports for every unit of its exports. The rise was attributed to the base effect of high oil prices last year. The drop in import prices at just under 10% when oil prices settled was greater than the decline in export prices at just over 5%. But as oil prices rise with the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, watchers say this effect is predicted to wear off. The government is speeding up implementing follow-up measures to ensure that a second Middle East boom produces economic value that'll benefit the country as a whole. That's according to Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho on Tuesday as he presided over a related ministers' meeting. Chu added that the follow-up measures will be in 5 key areas, namely energy, infrastructure, new industries, exports, and investment. Some measures include storing 5.3 million barrels of Saudi crude oil by 2028 and cooperating to produce clean energy sources such as hydrogen. South Korea has so far won nearly $80 billion worth of contracts and deals in the Middle East. Shifting gears, Israeli troops are advancing deeper into Gaza as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rules out a ceasefire. But rather than a full-scale war, Israel is apparently widening its ground operation by surrounding the population center. Our An Sung-jin takes a look at how this is unfolding.
Israel's ground operation has intensified in Gaza. The Israeli Defense Forces announced that they struck approximately 300 Hamas targets in northern Gaza, exploding military compounds and underground tunnels. This comes as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejects any talk of a ceasefire.
Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terrorism, to surrender to barbarism. That will not happen.
The Israeli military on Monday stated the killing of 4 prominent Hamas operatives and the rescue of an Israeli soldier whom Hamas kidnapped among more than 200 others during the October 7th attack. Private Ori Megidish, a female soldier monitoring the Gaza border, was rescued by Israeli Defense Forces in northern Gaza and is said to be well mentally and physically. Israel is strengthening ground operations in the Palestinian enclave as it searches for more hostages.
Israel intends to engage in ground operations bit by bit as they surround the strip just like the salami tactic. They'll search for hostages and destroy underground tunnels and booby traps as they use artillery in limited areas to refrain from hit-or-miss bombing.
Rather than rushing in, the Israeli Defense Forces aim to reduce the number of casualties. This tactic could allow Israel to dodge direct criticism.
If Israel engages in a full-scale invasion, and if there are any hostage casualties from their bombing, condemnation from the rest of the world will be inevitable. Instead, they decided on military ground operations which will pressure Hamas and also place the moral responsibility of killings on them.
Israeli forces are said to push deeper into Gaza, yet this raises concerns as countries fear a spillover into a broader regional conflict. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea's Joint Chief of Staff says it is hard to predict when North Korea will conduct its 3rd attempt to launch a spy satellite. In a press briefing today, a military spokesperson said staff are monitoring the situation, but added that it is difficult to tell when the regime will go for a launch. Another military officer says that if the North manages to speedily resolve its technological issues with help from Russia, it may be able to carry out the launch next month, but if it needs a lot more help, it could take longer. Earlier in August, the North failed in its 2nd attempt to launch a spy satellite as the rocket crashed into the sea. Pyongyang then immediately announced that it would make a 3rd attempt in October. But with less than a day left this month, it's unlikely that the regime will be able to meet its own deadline. This week, Seoul and Washington are engaged in a large-scale air drill, and pundits believe Pyongyang may resort to provocations in protest, like missile launches. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
Seoul and Washington are currently conducting round-the-clock aerial drills dubbed Vigilant Defense in the skies around the Korean peninsula. The 5-day exercise, which kicked off Monday, involved some 130 South Korean and U.S. aircraft, including Seoul's F-35A fighters, the E-737 airborne early warning and control aircraft, and the KC-330 transport plane, as well as Washington's F-35A and F-35B fighters. The exercise is aimed at enhancing the Allies' combined operational capabilities against North Korea's military provocations.
South Korea and the U.S. Air Force plan to master wartime operation procedures and check operational capabilities.
This is being done through drills which include combat formation, defensive counter-air drills, airborne alert interdiction, and close air support operations. Colonel Kang Geun-shin, the director of the exercise, had previously said the intensive training is similar to actual combat and will allow the Allies to respond to any provocation by the enemy. That being said, there is growing speculation that North Korea may stage missile launches in a show of discontent with the joint drills.
It is highly likely that North Korea will carry out various forms of provocation during this training period to create insecurity on the Korean peninsula.
North Korea, which has previously called such drills rehearsals for invasion, launched missiles during last year's Seoul-Washington joint air exercise. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
The number of farms with cases with lumpy skin disease in South Korea is now up to 69. 2 more cattle farms were added on Tuesday, one in Ganghwa-gun County in Incheon and one in Gochang-gun County in Jeollabuk-do Province. Gyeongsang-buk-do Province and Jeju Island are now the only 2 areas in the country where no cases have been reported. The government plans to complete vaccinations of the cattle by November 10th, but says the number of cases will likely rise as it takes around 3 weeks for vaccinated cattle to form antibodies. Today, October 31st, is Halloween. Last year, a deadly crowd crush during Halloween celebrations in Itaewon, central Seoul, killed 159 people and left the country in shock. Our Shin Se-byuk reports how the Halloween scene has changed here in the country.
Hongdae, one of the hottest and trendiest nightlife areas in Seoul, used to be filled with excitement and people with costumes for Halloween. And now, 1 year after the deadly Halloween crowd crush that took the lives of 159 people in Itaewon, things have changed. Halloween 2023 is much calmer and quieter than other previous years.
Before the tragic accident last year, my friends used to suggest going out to places like Itaewon or Hongdae for Halloween. But now the whole let's go out vibe has really died down. I'm not too keen on heading out either.
I see fewer people wearing Halloween costumes this year. It's also less hustle and bustle overall.
However, despite the solemn mood, the Halloween spirit was found in some places. Decorations like ghosts and pumpkins were scattered around, and there were some people wearing costumes. In fact, according to the Mapogu District Office, during the Halloween peak weekend, which fell from October 27th to 29th this year, approximately 260,000 people visited Hongdae over the 3 days from Friday to Sunday. It's a 50% increase in visitors compared to other usual weekends. To prevent accidents due to population density, the government and local authorities have made extra preparations. From October 27th through November 1st, the Seoul Metropolitan Government is keeping a close eye on 16 areas across 12 districts, including popular spots like Itaewon, Hongdae, and Gangnam. Seoul City and 25 local districts, together with safety-related agencies like the police and fire department, jointly monitor crowd density to ensure everyone's safety using AI-powered crowd management systems. Medical facilities as well as medics and ambulances were also on standby. Halloween is over, but the government is bracing for upcoming year-end festivities nationwide.
With large-scale year-end events set to take place nationwide, the government has vowed to implement on-site crowd management systems at 100 locations across the country by the end of the year. Shin Se-byuk, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, the song 7 by BTS member Jungkook has set a record on Spotify for the shortest time to surpass 1 billion streams. It took the song 108 days from its release to reach the milestone on Monday. This is 4 days shorter than the previous record set by American singer-songwriter Miley Cyrus with her song Flowers. The song debuted at #1 on Spotify's global daily top song chart back in July, making Jungkook the first K-pop solo artist to do so. Arirang TV's Simply K-pop program recently had the pleasure of hosting Norwegian pop star Petter Elias, much to the delight of his fans here and beyond. Our Yoon has the highlights and what's special about his visit.
Simply K-pop, also known as Simply Contour, is a live concert program broadcast by Arirang TV and hosted by Lee Dae-hee. It features live performances by a variety of K-pop artists and plays an essential role as a platform to interact with fans and share music with an audience both in South Korea and internationally. In this week's episode, Norwegian pop star Petter Elias took to the stage as a special guest, where he shared his eagerness to connect with his dedicated fan base.
안녕하세요. My name is Petter Elias. I am an artist, singer-songwriter from Norway, and I love being in Korea and playing shows and meeting all the beautiful people here, and excited to do this interview right now.
Petter has already secured fans across Southeast Asia and here in Korea, where his single Loving You Girl achieved chart success in 2021. This year, he returned to South Korea for a live concert and made a special visit to Arirang TV.
Then I also heard later that this was the show where international artists go as well, so then I thought that would be really cool.
Simply K-pop Contour is also seeking to make its shows more inclusive by producing special country-themed episodes where they invite fans from those countries to join the broadcast remotely. The show became a platform for Petter to share his music with an even broader audience.
I think it was almost like love at first sight. For me, it was kind of Koreans were the first people that really started listening to my music. So therefore it was like natural kind of special bond, because they changed a lot for me and gave me a lot of opportunities through discovering first my song Bonfire and later lots of more songs.
Over the years, Simply K-pop has hosted a range of K-pop artists, including global superstars like BTS, reaffirming its status as a stage where well-known K-pop artists and emerging talents come together to share their passion for music. Hosted and subtitled in multiple languages, the show airs worldwide every Friday and is streamed on YouTube every other Monday. Yoon, Arirang News.
The 2023 Suncheonman International Garden Expo ended on Tuesday after 7 months of showcasing various garden cultures and the biodiversity of its ecosystems. The city of Suncheon in Jeollanam-do province hosted the festival across multiple venues, including the Suncheon Bay National Garden, attracting nearly 10 million visitors. The province's governor Kim Young-rok attended the closing ceremony and noted that this expo was a success in showing the beauty of the city even beyond Korea. But the expo site will actually be open to the public from November 1st till the 5th, giving people one last chance to have a look at what was on display.
Warmer than average temperatures are forecast to continue tomorrow. For Seoul, lows will be starting off fairly warm in the mid-teens, while highs will be jumping to 22 degrees Celsius. This warming trend will continue for a while. Keep in mind that Thursday will be the warmest day of the week. Scattered outbreaks of rainfall will be coming and going for central regions. As for the overall amount of rainfall, northern Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces will see 5 to 30 millimeters. The capital region and the surrounding areas will only see about 5. Along with the rain, parts of the coastlines will see gusty offshore winds. Morning temperatures in Seoul and Busan will be starting off at 15 degrees. Parts of central regions will see rain continuing into the daytime. As for the daily highs, Seoul will get up to 22 degrees, Daejeon 23, Daegu and Busan will be reaching 24 degrees. And frequent showers are in the forecast for this week. Central regions will see rain in between Friday and Sunday. Make sure to have your umbrellas handy. It's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
Well, that is all for tonight's newscast. Thank you for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with the latest newscast. Good night.